Let's read Nahum about Nineveh. An oracle concerning the people of Nineveh, the vision of Nahum. The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord is avenging and wrathful. Already, sentence number 1 bothers us because we just think Christianity is fluffy clouds, unicorns, rainbows. We never like to consider the fact that perhaps we may be judged by God one day. That hurts. But we're all going to be getting judged one day, so we got comfortable in that. The Lord is a jealous and avenging God. The Lord is avenging and wrathful. The Lord takes vengeance on his adversaries and keeps wrath for his enemies. That means he stores up wrath for his enemies, like in the jar where you can press the lid. Is it still wrathful? Okay, yeah, it's good. It hasn't clicked yet. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and the Lord will by no means clear the guilty. His way is a whirlwind and a storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry. He dries up all of the rivers. Bashan and Carmel wither. The bloom of Lebanon withers. The mountains quake before him. The hills melt. The earth heaves before him, and the world and all who dwell in it. Who can stand before his indignation? Who can endure the heat of his anger? His wrath is poured out like fire, and the rocks are broken into pieces by him. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble. He knows the ones that take refuge in him. But with an overflowing flood, he will make a complete end of the adversaries and will pursue his enemies into darkness. What do you plot against the Lord? He will make a complete end. Trouble will not rise up a second time. For they are like entangled thorns, like drunkards as they drink, as they are consumed like stubble fully dried. From you came one who plotted evil against the Lord, a worthless counselor. Thus says the Lord, though they are at full strength and many, they will be cut down and pass away. Though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more. And now I will break his yoke off from you and will burst your bonds apart. The Lord has given a commandment about you. No more shall your name be perpetuated. From the house of your gods I will cut it off. The carved image and the metal image I will make your grave, for you are vile. Behold, upon the mountains, the feet of him who brings good news, who publishes peace. Keep your feasts, O Judah. Fulfill your vows, for never again shall the worthless pass through you. He is utterly cut off. The scatter has come up upon you. This is now the destruction of Nineveh. The scatterer has now come up against you. Man the ramparts, watch the road, dress for battle, collect all of your strength, for the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob as the majesty of Israel, for plunderers have plundered them and ruined their branches. The shields of his mighty men is red. His soldiers are clothed in scarlet. The chariots come in with flashing metal. On the day he musters them, the cypress spears are brandished. The chariots race madly through the streets. They rush to and fro through the squares. They gleam like torches. They dart like lightning. He remembers his officers. They stumble as they go. They hasten to the wall. The siege tower is set up. The river gates are open. The palace melts away. Its mistress is stripped. She is carried off, and her slave girls are lamenting, moaning like doves and beating their chests. Nineveh is like a pool whose waters run away. Stop! Stop! They cry, but no one turns back. Plunder the silver. Plunder the gold. There is no end to the treasures or the wealth of all precious things. Desolate, desolation and ruin, hearts melt and knees tremble. Anguish is in all the loins, all faces grow pale. And where is the lion's den? The feeding place of the young lions, where the lion and lioness went, where his cubs were, with none to disturb. The lions tore enough for his cubs and strangled prey for his lioness. He filled his calves with prey and his dens with torn flesh. Behold, I am against you, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will burn your chariots in smoke, and the sword shall devour your young lions. I will cut off your prey from the earth, and the voice of your messengers shall no longer be heard. Woe to the bloody city, all full of lies and plunder, no end to the prey. The crack of the whip and the rumble of the wheel, galloping horse and bounding chariot, horsemen charging, flashing sword and glittering spear, hosts of slain, heaps of corpses, dead bodies without end. They stumble over the bodies. And all for the countless whorings of the prostitute, graceful and of deadly charms, who betrays nations with her whorings and people with her charm. Behold, I am against you, declares the Lord of hosts. And I will lift up your skirts over your face, and I will make nations look at your nakedness and kingdoms at your shame. I will throw filth at you and treat you with contempt and make you a spectacle. And all who look at you will shrink away from you and say, wasted is Nineveh. Who will grieve for her? Where shall I seek comforters for you? Are you better than the Thebes that sat by the Nile, with water all around her, her rampart at sea, and water in her wall? Cush was her strength, Egypt too, and that without limit. Put and Libyans were her helpers, yet she became an exile. She went into captivity. Her infants were dashed in pieces, and the head of every street. For her honored men, lots were cast, and all her great men were bound in chains. You also will be drunken. You will go into hiding. You will seek a refuge from the enemy. All your fortresses are like fig trees with first ripe figs. If shaken, they will fall into the mouth of the eater. Behold, your troops are women in your midst. The gates of your land are wide open to your enemies, and fire has devoured your bars. Draw water for the siege, strengthen your forts, go into the clay, tread the mortar, take a hold of the brick mold. The fire devour you, and the sword will cut you off. It will devour you like the locust. Multiply yourselves like the locust. Multiply like the grasshopper. You increased your merchants more than the stars of the heavens. Your locusts spread its wings and flew away. Your princes are like grasshoppers. Your scribes like clouds of locusts setting on the fences in a day of cold. And when the sun rises, they fly away, and no one knows where they are. Your shepherds are asleep, O king of Assyria. Your nobles are in a slumber. Your people are scattered, and the mountains with none to gather them. And there is no easing your hurt. Your wound is grievous. All who hear the news about you clap their hands over you, for upon whom has not come your unceasing evil. Well, that's a nice word. Not too often do we get an opportunity to read challenging scriptures that can sometimes invoke scenes in our minds of apocalyptic nature. Well, where's the happy verses, Pastor James? Isn't church supposed to be fun? Actually, you know what? I think these types of things are so crucial to capitalize on, because far too often do we become comfortable in not experiencing challenge or struggle or strife, that we forget the fact that God is ultimately our judge. Ultimately, what Nineveh is experiencing here is a very cognitive decision to not relinquish her pride. Now, everybody in this room is probably thinking, well, I know like 6 or 7 people that are just so proud and they refuse to not admit that they're proud. No, this isn't for all those other people that you know that should be sitting here and hearing this message. This is for you. But this is also for me. As I was reading through this, I had a hard time not weeping. And I'm not saying like, oh, shed a tear, poor Nineveh. I was so deeply convicted and wretchedly ill about the state of my own heart before the Lord. I recognize that it has been far too long since I had fallen on my face before God and just dealt with all of my junk. Not what anybody else has done to me, but all the stuff that I had done to others or I had done towards God. I realized that I had gone for quite a period of time of not realizing that I'm just full of pride. I don't want to admit that I'm wrong, so if I admit that I'm wrong, people might think less of me and they don't think I should be able to do what I'm doing, and I got to keep it all together and I got to hold it in, I got to put on a facade. Nobody can know that maybe I've messed up here or there. Well, who cares? Because at the end of the day, if I cover myself up in the words of affirmation over myself, it's okay. You've done good. Let's bolster that self-confidence. It's going to be a good day. Keep covering myself up with these platitudes. Suddenly, what I've done is I have set in stone the reality of my judgment before God. I was reading through this and I realized it is very challenging to admit the fact that one day I will stand before God and everything that I have ever done, said, thought, or acted upon will be known. All the lies that I have told myself to try to make sure that I feel okay at the end of the day, He already knows the things that have gone on in the secret places of my heart. There is nothing that has escaped Him. And when I stand before Him one day and He speaks to me and He reads aloud the realities of what I have done in my life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I will be utterly and completely at that point without excuse. That's scary. It caused me to have quite a visceral reaction to the reality that I will stand in judgment before God one day. Now, you can apply this to yourself in any which way you desire to. I'm telling you about me. So you can't get mad at me saying, oh, pastor made me feel bad. If you feel bad, God's making you feel bad. You got to deal with your life. I'm wrestling with this, and it hurt. And what began to hurt more was the reality setting in that I have grieved the heart of the one who created me with purpose. I have grieved the heart of the very one who designed intention into my life, and I have squandered it because of my pride. I have refused to surrender. I have refused to admit wrongdoing. I have refused to forgive. I have refused to be forgiven. And here I am recognizing that I have put a significant barrier up between myself and God. And then I'm left wondering, well, has He tried to warn me? Nineveh got 2 warnings. The first one brought about a change. The second one hardened their hearts. And then after that, it was done. I don't want to be Nineveh. I don't want to be in a position before God one day where I say, well, please don't. I don't deserve this. And having my Creator read aloud before me the opportunities and the warnings that He had given me over and over again that I chose to ignore because they made me feel uncomfortable. The warnings that He had given me that I ignored because I wanted to save face. The warnings that He had given me that I stuffed down and pushed away because it might mean that somebody else might think less of me. The warnings that I pushed aside and stuffed down and tried to erase from my memory because I was too fragile to admit that I had sinned in the eyes of God. Now, you might be wondering, where's the love? God does not let things go unaccounted for. He is fully just and He is fully righteous. He punishes the proud and the wicked. He upholds the righteous and the humble. And in this case, God's judgment was pronounced against Nineveh. And they certainly met their ruin, and they were wiped from the earth, not by God, but by the Babylonians. God didn't immediately remove his hand of grace from them. In fact, through the words of Jonah, Nineveh repented and turned to God. God spared them, but after some time, they turned back right to their old ways. It's the classic thing of recognizing that we've been set free from something and we have a new destiny in front of us, but we go directly back to the things that make us feel more comfortable. Nahum was sent by God again to preach to them about repentance and to warn them, and they did not heed Nahum's warning. They continued to do evil in the sight of God. They treated other nations terribly. They were brutal and destructive in their behavior. So the title of today's message is The Love and Judgment of God. So where is the love? This is the good part. The part about love is happening right now in your chest, in your stomach, in your guts, in the veins on your neck that are starting to get a little pronounced because you're feeling the pressure of what is going on in your mind right now that God's dealing with in your heart. You're processing, you're thinking. It's uncomfortable, I'm sure. It's uncomfortable for me. Can there be love in this? Yes. Better a harsh word from a friend than the kiss from an enemy. Remember that. Better the harsh word from a friend than a kiss from an enemy. The love is this. And this is the cool part. Okay? Today, right now, immediately in this spot where you sit, there is an opportunity for you to say, Lord, forgive me. What's cool is he already knows all the things that you need to be forgiven for. He's just waiting for you to come to him and admit the fact that you need him. And the other part that's really great is he has made a way for you to be restored. You don't have to go to a temple and offer a bunch of different types of sacrifices and walk through all of your Hail Marys and do your penance. You don't have to worry about any of those pieces. What you have to worry about today is going before your Creator, your Father in heaven, who already knows everything that has gone on. He is waiting for you to come to him, and you just need to say, God, I need your help. I've messed up. I have done these things to people. I have hurt people. I have said these things. I've harbored resentment in my heart. I have anger inside of me. I don't know how to deal with it all. I need your help. And that's all you have to do is you just have to go to him and say, I need you, God. The only thing that gets affected in all of this is your pride. That's it. That's all that gets affected in all of this is your pride. If people think bad about me, it's just your pride. If you don't want to admit that you've screwed up, it's just your pride. If you might have to make some changes to the plans that you've set in motion because of your sinful nature, it's just your pride. It's just pride. And pride is garbage. You don't want your heart full of it. And if your heart is full of it, pride isn't getting into heaven. And pride has no audience before the Lord.